CEV Multimedia presents The Digestive System, a basic look. The goal of this program is to understand the basic anatomy of digestive systems. Therefore, the objectives are to understand basic functions of organs in the digestive systems, to understand the different types of digestive systems, to identify basic structures associated with the digestive tract.
We spend most of our waking hours filling and emptying it, but we don't think about it until something goes wrong. So today we're going to talk about elements of the digestive system.
In this program, we'll take a tour of the digestive systems of different livestock species.
Your host is medical school instructor Benny C. Shaw, Jr., faculty associate at Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center. He has published numerous articles and papers and has presented at international medical and educational conferences. He has over 6 years' experience teaching future medical doctors gross anatomy, medical histology, and neuroscience. Also joining us is Dr. Kevin R. Pond, professor and chair for the Department of Animal Science and Food Technology at Texas Tech University. Dr. Pond has been awarded numerous teaching awards and contributes to education through journal articles, reports, manuscripts, and textbook contributions and authorships. Dr. Pond is co-author of Basic Animal Nutrition and Feeding, a leading collegiate textbook for animal nutrition. This program is divided into 3 sections.
First, we'll take a general overview of the digestive system, including definitions and general functions.
Then we'll take a tour of the digestive systems of monogastrics, or simple-stomached animals, and take a brief look at the digestive systems of ruminants.
Section 1. General structures and definitions.
The digestive system is basically a muscular tube that transports food.
This tube is referred to as the alimentary canal and starts at the mouth and ends at the rectum.
There are 6 functions to the digestive system: ingestion, mechanical processing, digestion, secretion, absorption, and excretion. Ingestion is when food enters the oral cavity or mouth. It is important to expose a large surface area for chemical digestion. This occurs through the mechanical processing, which is the physical tearing and grinding of food between the teeth, and the actual churning within the stomach of food. Digestion is actually the chemical breakdown of food into small organic particles that can be absorbed across the lining of the digestive tract. Secretion aids digestion through the release of enzymes, water, and acids. We have the salivary glands that release saliva that contains an enzyme. We have the liver that releases bile, and we have the pancreas that releases enzyme. These enzymes and acids chemically break down the food in the digestive tract. Absorption is the movement of organic molecules across the lining of the digestive system, and excretion is the removal of waste products.
The prehension of food is the way the animal will gather the food. If we talk about the organ of prehension in man, it would be our hands, because we take our food with our hands and bring it to our mouth. In the case of a horse, for instance, the organ of prehension is its lip. The upper lip and lower lip will sort the grain or sort the grass and will be selecting what they want to consume, bring it to the mouth, and then consuming it. If we compare that to a cow, the organ of prehension in a cow is the tongue. It will take its tongue, will extend it from its mouth, wrap it around the forage or grass that it's trying to consume, bring it back into the mouth, bite it, and consume it. In the case of a sheep or a goat, it's very similar to that of a cow. They'll use their tongue, but they also use their lips. In fact, a sheep and goat have a split upper lip, and so it enables them to graze even closer than a cow would graze. We have to have mastication occur to break down that feed. And different species masticate food differently. The horse has the teeth structure such that it has teeth on both the upper and lower mandible, jaw, and these incisors are used to be able to grasp the forage once the lips have positioned them. So in the case of the horse, it's going to bite down on the forage, bring it into its mouth, and chew it and consume it. Once the animal brings the food into the mouth, it's going to chew it with its premolars and molars. And if we look at this example of a horse's skull, if you'll notice, the teeth structure is such that only one side of the teeth can be matched together at one time. This would mean that an animal would be only chewing on one side at one time. It then might shift and move to the other side and shift and chew on that side. So in the case of a horse, as in with all animals, chewing only occurs at one side. The horse is an example of an animal that has a full set of premolars and molars, the teeth that are located along through here. It also has a full set of upper incisors and lower incisors. In the case of a cow, it does not have an upper incisors, it just has a dental pad. The same would be true for both sheep and goats. In sheep and goats and in cattle, they are going to ruminate. Rumination is a sequence of events that allows material from the reticulum and rumen to be brought from there to the mouth. It is a reverse aspiration, and we have material coming directly up the esophagus to be chewed. And so we will see an animal ruminate, and you'll watch an animal will chew on one side for one bolus, will then pause, will swallow, bring up another bolus, and generally they'll switch to the other side. Once it arrives in the mouth, the animal will swallow the liquid material and then chew the remaining material until satisfied. It will then be swallowed and reintroduced back into the reticulum and rumen. You may ask the question, why do ruminants ruminate? It is thought that through evolution, ruminants did consume large amounts of material very quickly and then retired to a secure area where they could ruminate and re-chew what they'd consumed, thus avoiding the dangers of being caught by a predator.
Prepare for questions from Section 1. Prehension is a term referring to A. How an animal gathers food. B. Eating feed or forage. C. Chewing food. D. Digesting food. What is different in the mouth structure of ruminants compared to that of humans? A. There is no difference. B. Humans do not have upper incisors. C. Cattle, sheep, and goats have a dental pad instead of upper incisors. D. Ruminants do not have a true tongue. What is a human's organ of prehension? A. Mouth. B. Teeth. C. Hand. D. Eye. Which of the following is not directly involved in mechanical processing? A. Mouth. B. Stomach. C. Teeth. D. Liver. The body's release of enzymes, water, and acids into food is known as A. Absorption. B. Secretion. C. Mastication. D. Excretion.
A monogastric is an animal with a simple stomach. Horses, swine, and humans are examples of monogastrics. The digestive system of a 200-pound pig will be used to approximate a human's digestive tract.
While researchers have used larger milking machines like cattle and goats, they've come back to the pig because the pig has the similar reproductive, digestive, and overall physiological systems that humans do.
Two notable differences between a pig's digestive tract and a human's digestive tract is that humans have an appendix and a short cecum, while pigs have no appendix and a longer cecum.
What we have here is the digestive system of a pig that has been laid out so that it would represent the digestive system of a human. Laying face up, the left side of the body, the right side of the body towards the head is superior, towards the feet is inferior, and if they're laying face up, towards the chest wall is anterior, towards the back, or towards the table in this case, would be posterior. So if we start superiorly and we follow food as it travels through the digestive system, first the food would enter the mouth where it is chewed or masticated. We have the incisors which cut. We have the cuspid, which tears, and we have the premolar and molars, which grind. After mechanical grinding and tearing, the bolus of food is swallowed and taken from the oral cavity down the esophagus to the stomach. During swallowing, the tongue guides the food to the back so that it can travel down the esophagus. And during swallowing, the food is propelled along the esophagus through peristaltic action, or a wave of contractions. What we want to look at now is we want to transect the esophagus and look at the muscular wall of the esophagus. The esophagus is made up of a muscular layer and a mucosal layer. The muscular layer has two layers of muscle, an inner circular muscle which goes around the esophagus, and an outer longitudinal muscle which travels the length of the esophagus. And these contracting together create a peristaltic wave to propel the food down the esophagus into the stomach. The mucosal lining, or the mucosa, has glands that produce a slippery mucus substance that helps the food to travel down the esophagus. Past the level where the diaphragm would sit, it enters the stomach in the cardiac region. The cardiac portion of the stomach produces a mucus secretion that protects the esophagus from the acidic secretion from the rest of the stomach. When food enters the stomach, we have a churning action that occurs. At the same time, there is a stimulation for the release of enzymes and acids that help break down the contents that are within the stomach. So the churning helps mechanically break down the material, as well as mix the enzymes and the acids with the material to help facilitate the chemical breakdown within the stomach. This occurs for several hours. At the end of the stomach is the pyloric valve, which is a thickening circular muscle that is between the pyloric region of the stomach and the first part of the small intestines, the duodenum. The duodenum is a C-shaped area where secretions from the liver and from the pancreas enter to help digest the material within the duodenum. Within this C-shaped structure is the pancreas. Bile is continuously produced by the liver. And as bile is produced, it comes down small bile ducts that come together as one single bile duct, just inferior to the liver. Bile travels down this bile duct until it hits this valve. This is the duodenal papilla. And since it cannot enter into the duodenum, the bile backs up along this bile duct, but instead of going back into the liver, it travels up into the gallbladder where it is stored and concentrated. The duodenum is the first portion of the small intestines. It's about 10 inches long in the human. It's continuous with the jejunum, which we see the majority of here. It's about 8 feet long. And then from the jejunum, we go into the ileum, which in the human would be about 12 feet long. And it ends in the ileocecal valve, where it will empty its contents into the large intestine. This ileocecal valve is a lot like the pyloric valve. It is a thick circular muscle that surrounds the entrance of the ileum into the cecum. All along the digestive system, we have a blood supply. We have the arterial system, which is taking blood to the organs. We have a venous system, which is draining the organs. And we can see that in the organs on the table here. And we can actually see how these blood vessels come from the posterior body wall through the mesentery, which is a structure that carries the blood vessels from the posterior body wall to the intestinal structures. The venous system comes together and collects as one large vessel called the hepatic portal vessel. This is significant because all venous blood is collected and travels through the liver before it is released to the body's bloodstream or travels back to the heart. The reason for this is the most common way to bring a toxin into the body is through ingestion. The liver, its main function is detoxification. So all nutrients or toxins that are collected from the digestive system have to be processed by the liver before it's returned to the body circulation. Within the jejunum and ileum, chemical digestion occurs and the majority of nutrients are absorbed. It's kind of hard to see, but we can actually see longitudinal folds. These are called plicae. On the plicae, there are microscopic structures called villi, which are like finger-like projections off the surface. On these villi are even smaller finger-like projections called microvilli. This increases the surface area of the jejunum for absorption. The large intestine, or the colon, is made up of the cecum, and in the human we'd have a small 2-inch projection about the size of your little finger, the appendix. And then moving superiorly, we would have the ascending colon. And just underneath the liver, or inferior to the liver, we have the beginning of the transverse colon, which travels across the body, just inferior to the liver and the stomach. Transverse colon. It ends is the descending colon that travels down the left side. The descending colon becomes this S-shaped structure, the sigmoid colon, which terminates in the rectum. We enter the large intestine where the majority of water and vitamins are absorbed, and the remaining contents are compacted for excretion out of the body.
Prepare for questions from Section 2. Waves of muscular contractions which push food through the esophagus are part of the process known as A. Peristalsis, B. Ingestion, C. Digestion, D. Mechanical processing. All venous blood leaving the intestines travels through what structure? A. The bile duct, B. The esophagus, C. The hepatic portal vessel, D. The ileum. The majority of water and vitamins is absorbed in the A. Esophagus, B. Stomach, C. Small intestine, D. Large intestine. The mesentery carries blood to the A. Mouth, B. Esophagus, C. Stomach, D. None of the above. Which part of the large intestine travels across the body inferior to the stomach and the liver? A. The cecum, B. The ascending colon, C. The transverse colon, D. The descending colon.
It's very important to understand quite a bit about the digestive anatomy of different species because it's very important in how we should feed them.
A ruminant is an animal that has multiple compartments rather than one stomach. Examples of ruminants are cattle, sheep, and goats.
What we have in front of us here is a digestive tract from an 1,100-pound steer that was slaughtered just a few hours ago. And we have spread it out to remove some of the tissue so we can see things a little bit better from the esophagus, which would be in at the head. It's been tied off here, all the way down to the rectum, which has been tied off there. So all of this is the digestive tract in between that the steer would be using to digest and absorb the nutrients from the feed. I have the esophagus in my hand. Of course, up here at the mouth, it's been cut right at the end of the mouth. Its function is going to be to carry material down. In the case of a steer, it also brings material back up for chewing their cud. You've probably seen cows that chew their cud. Well, the esophagus has a function of going both directions. It enters into the rumen, which is this large area here that is actually filled with gas now because of the digestion that continues to go on by the bacteria that inhabit the rumen. The ventral rumen is primarily liquids with some solid material, whereas the dorsal rumen is more floating particulate matter and not as high in liquid content. And if we look at the dorsal rumen, the amount of papillae in the dorsal rumen is much smaller. The ventral portion, or the part toward the belly of the animal, has much more papillae, these projections that are coming out, compared to the dorsal rumen, which goes from smooth to just a few papillae that are projecting from the rumen wall. The ventral area is going to have greater number and size of papillae, increases the surface area dramatically, and we get much more absorption from the ventral tract compared to the dorsal tract.
In addition to holding consumed food, the rumen, in concert with the reticulum, rhythmically relaxes and contracts, causing the microbes and fluid to be thoroughly mixed with the feed undergoing digestion. Bacteria, or microbes that aid in digestion, are spread throughout the mixture.
Remember that material coming from the esophagus comes into the junction of the reticulum and rumen. In fact, very heavy objects often will fall down into the reticulum. The reticulum is this area right here, and it's oftentimes called the honeycomb. It has structures shaped like a honeycomb. Here is a cleaned sample from the reticulum, and you can see the basically honeycomb-shaped material. This wall, again, is very thick, and as I try and put my finger through it, it'd be impossible, and that's what is going to hold metal objects and other sharp things and dense materials in the reticulum. Because they're so non-selective in their grazing and eating, it's not uncommon to find bale twine, wire. In older cattle, oftentimes we will see lots of metal in that. In fact, in dairy cattle, oftentimes a magnet would be fed, which is about this long, which would be placed in the reticulum. Just given orally, it drops down and stays in the reticulum, and in that way it holds the wire in place, or the nails or staples that the animal consumed. And this magnet of this size is orally administered to the animal. It follows its way down the esophagus into the reticulum where it's housed by the animal. What I have here is a magnet that's been taken from an animal that has had the magnet in it for about 2 years. As you can notice on this magnet, this particular cow consumed a lot of material it shouldn't have. Here's a fairly large bolt, a washer. We also have part of a staple and some wire. As the animal consumed that material, it was collected associated with the magnet, and that prevented it from being passed further down the tract where it could cause other problems, puncturing the digestive tract and peritonitis resulting, or even puncturing through the reticulum wall with a piece of wire. If it does puncture the wall of the reticulum, the heart is located right here. So we would have pretty much instantaneous death if we have a nail that goes through the reticulum and into the heart. So a magnet given to cattle can serve a very important purpose. From the reticulum, the exit from that is right about here, and it goes into this structure, which is the omasum. And if you feel it, you probably can see it. It's quite hard. The omasum is oftentimes called the leaves of the Bible, and the reason will become apparent when I open it up. This is a clean portion from the omasum. You can see the sections that occurred. Of course, this was completely filled with digestive content. You can still see a few pieces there, but there are several leaves the material would have to go through, and you can see how this would be a restriction to exit, and also that water absorption can take place to a large extent in these structures. Should be able to notice the white projectile type structures here. Those do decrease the rate at which material passes through the omasum, increase the length of time that material is there, so we have more water absorption that would occur. From there it goes on to the true stomach, which is the abomasum, which is right here, which is very similar to stomachs of monogastrics, humans, pigs, and so forth. And really from the stomach to the rest of the tract is very similar among all livestock with some minor differences. This is a cleaned portion of the abomasum, or true stomach. It does show the folds that occur in the stomach. It goes into the small intestine, which I have the beginning of right here. This is the liver, and attached to that is the gallbladder containing bile, and bile will be secreted into the beginning of the small intestine. The duodenum or duodenum is the first portion, then get into the jejunum, which is the middle portion, and then the last portion is the ileum of the small intestine. And at the end of the small intestine, the very end, it forms a T-juncture with the cecum. So we have the small intestine entering into the junction with the cecum. The rest of the material will go into the large intestine, and the large intestine follows on through here, coils, and comes out to the rectum. We have fed the animal some hay. He's consumed that hay, and those are some of the particles that he's consumed. The foamy material you see is the saliva that was produced. The saliva is very important in adding moisture to the feed, allowing the feed to become softened to allow it to be swallowed, and involved with beginning of digestion. Ruminants tend to be non-selective and oftentimes eat things that they shouldn't be eating. And sometimes we'll find hairballs associated with the rumen. Here's an example of a hairball that came from the rumen of an animal. It's fairly light. It's composed primarily of hair. When you have one that's this large, it's taking up space that what they're consuming could be taking up, so it's not a desirable thing to have.
Prepare for questions from Section 3. In ruminants, the esophagus carries feed from A, the mouth to the rumen, B, the rumen to the mouth, C, the stomach to the cecum, D, both A and B. Material leaving the omasum enters into what structure? A, abomasum, B, reticulum, C, rumen, D, esophagus. How many stomach compartments does a ruminant have? A, 2, B, 3, C, 4, D, 5. Why are magnets administered to cattle? A, to add weight, B, to catch wire and bolts, C, to help circulation, D, to speed digestion. The honeycomb refers to what structure? A, rumen, B, reticulum, C, omasum, D, abomasum.
Now let's take a laparoscopic look at the inside of a live pig. The gallbladder and liver are shown here. The liver produces bile, which is stored in the gallbladder. Bile is secreted into the small intestine to aid in fat digestion. The small intestine is the major site of digestion and absorption. The pancreas secretes digestive enzymes into the small intestine to aid in digestion. Note the blood flowing through the vascular tissue of the mesentery. The body is a finely tuned instrument. Studying its systems is fundamental to understanding health and preventing illness.
Prepare for the final quiz. Which of the following animals are considered ruminants? A, cattle, B, sheep, C, deer, D, all of the above. What organ produces bile? A, liver, B, stomach, C, colon, D, esophagus. Bile is stored and concentrated in the A, duodenum, B, appendix, C, gallbladder, D, cecum. Before traveling to the rest of the body, all absorbed nutrients or toxins must pass through the A, liver, B, pancreas, C, gallbladder, D, colon. The stomach performs which of the following functions? A, mechanical processing, B, digestion, C, secretion, D, all of the above. Which stomach compartment of ruminants is considered the true stomach? A, rumen, B, reticulum, C, omasum, D, abomasum. What structure governs the passage of food material into the small intestine? A. Pylorus or pyloric valve. B. Omasum. C. Cecum. D. Large intestine. Which of the following make up the small intestine? A. Duodenum. B. Ileum. C. Jejunum. D. All of the above. Which of the following structures aid in absorption? A. Papillae. B. Villi. C. Microvilli. D. All of the above. What is the horse's organ of prehension? A. Lips. B. Teeth. C. Hoof. D. Tail.